Welcome to the Art and Liberation exhibition, part of the Heads and Tails Mental Health Heritage Project, and it's also Chile Studios summer exhibition as well, which is wonderful. My name's Claire. I'm down here to compare from 6 till 7, although Jo knows that I always point out her spelling mistakes and typos, and it's the wrong compare. So it says I've got to compare 6 o'clock with 7 o'clock. And what that means is you're slightly peckish at 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, you're very hungry. And if you get too hungry for dinner at 8, they write a song about you.
Just another drop of whiskey, and then I go home. Just another song on the jukebox, and then I'm home.
My mum and dad made wooden lamps and shades, and I've always thought you must be able to make something else besides a bloody lamp or a candlestick. So I've started making strange little things like this. But is there a market out there? I want to make me money and I can't do it. Where'd you get it? So it's like I've even wanted to take my big sculpture from my flat, plop it in Newcastle city centre and do a protest and say, what is going on in this city? Student flats like these ugly brutes out here, that's a mistake. Architecturally, that's a mistake for Newcastle. I built 41 bits of furniture for this sculpture I'm building, and I had enough building furniture. I'm turning on the lathe, making a spindle, like an urn, and then I suddenly found out you can chop it and dice it and make it thin, and you get a Dremel, and you Dremel the back of it, and you get the Queen Anne style legs. So I've been doing a lot of furniture with Queen Anne style legs, but I think most of my work are prison sentences, because they just take too long. Because the tower at the art room, in the main room, that's been September the 11th. I spent 10 years building that one. This one's been about 5 years in the making, on and off over 8 years. But with here, there's no pressure. You come in and there's a chap that just started, he doesn't know what he's doing. He says, just take one day at a time. If you even just sit here and do nothing for a couple of days, just try it out. But with Bob, it's incredible how we set it up, because it'll be my aunt, who worked in mental health apparently years ago, Tories, she got an MBE, and I said to Bob when I came back, there's time for him to get an MBE, because if it wasn't for that art room, God knows where it would all be. To get the stuff for free, even though you're paying £12 a month, I owe some money on that one. But it's just like self-expression. It's just self-expression. And some people who can just do a squiggle, that's art. The art school likes to say, oh no, that's not art, you've got to be... No. Anybody can draw, anybody can sculpt, but there's a lot of pretentious bullshitter. The Baltic's one of them.
Here goes. Airport. I'm at the airport, waiting for nobody to come in. I'm at the airport, waiting to get out, but I can't. I can't get away from the stupidity of humans and the efficiency of machines.
I like the technicalities of the process, but I like the combination of a hands-on process mixed in with what's actually normally a factory process for slip casting ceramics, but finding a way to make slip cast ceramics more original and more individual, so using something that would normally be used just to provide a series of things that are identical to each other, and finding a way to deform that and change that to be something more individual. I think white cube spaces make art feel less available and less tangible for people. I think having it in a space like this makes it an awful lot more approachable for the majority of people. I think art should be approachable for people. People shouldn't be frightened to go near artworks and see them in different contexts and see different works together. I think you see more of a whole picture by seeing lots of different works together than seeing them sort of isolated and in cabinets.
The work is looking at an idea I found in phenomenology, which is the idea that everyone sees the world a tiny bit different, so everyone kind of forms their own reality. So that's why I've got little worlds here to represent like the different worlds we all inhabit, although we all inhabit the same space in a way. So that's why there's so many different worlds. There's what I would say a more positive world is the more colourful one, whereas the more, like me, the more anxiety filled is the kind of darker ball, the one that's more weighed down and lower down the sculpture. So there's a kind of hierarchy system in the work. I originally came to Chile Studios after I completed my MA at the Sunderland University, but I left there and realised that a lot of artistic practice isn't only making the object, it's the connections we make to other people, the networking, which I've got anxiety. I found it very, very difficult to make those connections. So I could make quite strong looking work. I couldn't meet the artists and network like I needed to, so I decided to volunteer at Chile Studios to help people here, but also to help myself become a little bit more confident. Like last year, I really couldn't stand in front of a camera and talk like this. I was like, no way, maybe audio, but definitely not video. In arts education, it's always about idea and how this connects to some sort of historical practice or the context we're in here. It's not necessarily making the artwork, it's the friendships and connections we all make to each other. So the artwork almost is a byproduct. Really it's the getting people out of the house, getting people to communicate, which is important. The artwork's good, but when you're in Chile Studios, the atmosphere is really great. Everyone's really tightly bonded together, and they all really get on well, which is, I think, something you kind of find rarely in society in general. Art helps me understand the world around me. Most of the time I walk around and I don't really have a clue what people are talking about, people's hidden motives. So art gives me a space to think about, well, how is the world constructed? Why does it work like that? Why am I even interested in that? So in my work, I ask a lot of questions, but I never find the answer, and really that's on purpose, because, you know, an answer is boring. To ask the question is the fun part, and to make a work about the question. And normally in society you wouldn't talk about these things. You wouldn't admit normally that, oh, you suffer from anxiety or you suffer from depression. But when you're in an environment where you know that everyone will freely talk about it, then of course, I mean, what other environment can you really talk freely without fear of prejudice or fear that you'll be excluded because you've admitted that you have a slight issue, you know? So yeah. And society can be positive, but sometimes can be fairly cruel to people who are a little bit different from themselves. But you know, hopefully by talking about it more, we normalise it, and hopefully mental illness can be just something like a broken hand. We can talk about it openly and not look for solutions, because there's nothing wrong with anyone, but make sure that people can deal with their emotions better and understand why they're feeling like that, which I think is probably the crux of it. If you understand why you feel like that, you can start to work out, well, how do I not feel like that? So it's that support network, which I think is critical. I think it's what we all need. We all need someone, a shoulder to lean on whenever we're in trouble. And I think a lot of people in our society don't have that anymore. We're increasingly living separate lives. We're not getting married. We're not getting into relationships. So we're all becoming quite separatist in a way. And I think having a group like Chile Studio helps that in a way. It becomes a meeting point where people can share, yes, creative ideas, but then also share if they're having a problem with the benefits, or if they're just having a general problem with their emotions at the time. It gives them a safe space where they can come and work through any thoughts, what they're having, any emotions they're having, without fear of really being criticised, really, you know. Which is rare, I think, because many people just want to offer their opinions and one-up you sometimes. Like, you're feeling bad, I feel worse.
In hormonal drugged haze, I'd fall into inner exuberance, lost in love and the bright beats and the power chords, and then our shared club world would fall silent. In the hush, our eyes met, and we'd smile, the smile of safe recognition. I'd want to be with her, be like her. We'd approach each other, we'd speak nonsense words, and when the music began again, we'd be hand in hand, ready to be entwined together, pressed chest to chest.
The main idea is basically where the project stems out, was born, because when Chile Studio visited the Taiwanware Archive Museum, they realized that people's perspective was missing from the archive, and in that moment they decided that what Chile Studio was doing like, and the mission was also like to fill this kind of gap and say, like, we got people who are directly affected with mental health. We got people who want to share their story. It's a hidden story, so how we can do it? And they put together this project to represent people's voice. We thought it was relevant to anyone directly or indirectly affected by mental health to be able to tell their stories in a safe way, building on the confidence and self-esteem. And it's something that is reflected through the project, the importance of giving people the self-confidence and self-esteem in telling their story. Like, people with mental health are generally labeled and stigmatized for the mental health. We dig into the Tyne & Wear Museum. You got a massive repository with historical records, hospital records from like anywhere in Tyne & Wear, because like Chili Studio is a Northeast-based organization. The aim was to gather the aim was to gather documents from the Tyne & Wear region. We got a political imprint to the project, because like when you start to talk about people who are underrepresented in historical archive, there's something about policy, there's something about power. You know, the struggle of those people who are not represented in the archive means that someone is managing the narrative, right? So we got something political, and like the political side also, like we want to raise voice of these people who are missing from government policy, or like the funding side, or like the benefit side where the majority of people need to live on. Definitely, so the project has got something like that. But also is the elaboration and interpretation of what has been done before with nowadays voices, which is another aim of the project. We critique the fact that in the archive there are only clinical records to represent mental health. There are only doctor records to describe mental health. But nowadays mental health is described in many different ways. You got newspaper who label mental health in many different ways. You got Daily Mail, say like The Nation is who compels, right? But then you got people who suffer, and because they are stigmatized by newspaper, media and coverage, they see their life threatened every day, okay? So this is why we need to criticize the society and rebalance the society with the story of these people who are marginalized.
Where will I get my head being there? Happy ending, happy ending, happy ending, happy ending. Well, I'm afraid that's all.